I spoke at a forum where I followed Cal Ripken Jr., and as a baseball fan, that was intimidating. I spoke at a forum where the President of the United States spoke, and that was really intimidating. But to speak in a forum where Cardinal Tobin spoke, now I'm really intimidated. And I'm not really good at speaking from notes, so invariably I forget things. So I would be remiss if I didn't start with my thank yous of thank you, Cardinal Tobin, Bishop O'Connell, Deanna, the Trenton Diocese, and all of you who put this together for inviting me to be here. I would also say that earlier the question was asked about what should the parishes do. You don't have to go any farther than Father John, Father Mike, and Deacon Bill if you want to know what you have to do, and I want to thank them also. So unlike Cardinal Tobin, I came from a small Irish Catholic family from Trenton. There was only 8 of us. It was wonderful to grow up with 7 brothers and 1 sister, and but I lost my dad. I was only 14, and I thank God today for my mom who kept us all together. And I tell people growing up after you lost your dad that none of us were in jail for long. But it was mentioned a couple times about City of Angels. How many of you know about City of Angels? Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about City of Angels. But first, about myself. A lot of times I talk, it's to high school students, and I talk to them about preparation. I usually ask them, how many of you going to college? And they all raised their hand. I said, so this high school is preparing you for college. So I worked for the utility for 38 years. That prepared me to work at Ground Zero for 2 shifts. Very much involved with my Irish heritage and the Northern Ireland peace process when it was going on, and that prepared me to be invited down to the State House of one of about, the U.S. State Department, one of about 15 people through the United States that was invited down to hear the progress of the peace process. But I can tell you that nothing prepared me for June 30th, 2008, when Marianne and I woke up and found my son dead on his bedroom floor. His name was Kevin Cayley. We affectionately, he called him KC. I affectionately referred to him as a knucklehead. But there's another way to tell my story.
Well, just speaking from where we came from with my son, he just was out at parties and they were available. And that's pretty much how he got started. It wasn't an injury, it wasn't anything else. It was just fun at a party, a lot of pills floating around. And he told me before he even realized he was addicted, he didn't realize what was going to happen or, you know, the sequence of events that would take place.
So Casey had issues with alcohol, you know, at parties. He had a DUI, and then the pill started, which would be, I guess, really late 90s. Right?
Mm-hmm. High school.
High school, with pills. And so he did get help. He did an IOP, which is intensive outpatient treatment. Everything was working well for him. Had a job, girlfriend, you know, changed his style of dress. And then he began what we call a downward spiral. Lost his girlfriend, lost his job. All the things that kind of pile up and take away their hope. And then we talked to him and found out he had started using heroin. And he hadn't been using heroin very long. As a matter of fact,
brief.
He only died 4 bags of heroin. I've got kids we help today use 70 bags of heroin a day. And he died on 4 bags. And probably his reason, like so many of our kids, he had gone away to treatment, and he left treatment, and we were going to Walt Disney World. We told him he couldn't stay home, so he came with us. So for 2 weeks we had him back. You know, he was taking his younger cousins around, his brothers and sisters, going to the movies, doing all kinds of things. So we had him back, and driving home, driving straight through that night, Sunday night, you know, he was asking me, what time are we going to get home? And I was like, does it really matter? When we get home, we get home. We pulled up about 11:20 at night, and he said he was going to meet his girlfriend because he had been gone for 2 weeks, and he actually went and bought heroin with his cousin and came home. And the coroner figures he did 2 bags of heroin. Then he came down, kissed his mom goodnight, played with the dog, and then went back to his room and did the other 2 bags. And then the next morning, I was working out of the house, and Mary Ann was home. It was summer, and she went to check on him, and that's when our life changed. She found him, you know, dead on his bedroom floor. Of course, you know, you're not thinking that. You know, we didn't know what happened. So I tried to administer CPR, but then I quickly realized he was gone. And at that point, I didn't even know what he died from. It still wasn't registered.
Really, at the time, we didn't know where to turn or what to do or who to call, and I think that's what everyone else was feeling. You know, the same thing. Who do we call? The stigma is huge, so you know, you don't want to let certain people know, so you just kind of try to maneuver through.
Casey died on June 30th, 2008, and as Mary Ann said, friends of ours, friends of his, parents of friends of his started calling us, said,
Friends.
our son, our daughter
His
has
friends.
a problem, can you help us? And like most parents we meet today, we were pretty clueless. You know, I meet with parents now, and they start to say, oh, I should have done this, whatever. I said, look, go home tonight, go to your bookshelf, get your parenting book out, and open it up to this chapter. They look at me, because there is none. You know, if Johnny wins all county wrestling, everybody on the block knows. But if Janie has a drug or alcohol problem, we put our head down, we don't say anything. Mm-hmm. So it's happening all around you. You just don't see it until it hits.
I think we need to educate the parents as well, because I don't think they realize how young these kids are getting involved in that kind of stuff. So
12 or 13 on heroin, not on alcohol, pot, right on heroin. I remember the day in July when I was standing at my son's viewing, and we were supposed to be there from 2 to 7, I think, and at 1:30 we were in the parking lot. They said, you got to get in here, there's people in line. And 9 o'clock at night, I look over at Mary Ann. She was in her floral print dress. Her shoes were off at that point. She had never moved, never went to the bathroom, never gone to get a drink of water. And I kind of looked over at my son, and I guess in a naive kind of way, I thought, got to do something so that other parents aren't going to be standing where we are. And I say naive because, you know, when I give my talks, one of the things that goes in my pocket are these. You know, this isn't a deck of cards. These are just some of the funerals and services that I've been at. There's peace in our house, but it was a great sacrifice. We help people every day that there's no peace in their house. This disease takes no prisoners. It just wants to take everything. It wants to take your relationship. It wants to take your relationship with your children. It wants to take the brothers and sisters relationship from their addicts. And then once it takes your child, you know, their pain dies with them, but the pain that's left behind is not something. I tell people, you want to know me because of all I've learned. You don't want to be me because of what we went through.
That was, the reason I show that is not because I'm in it, but that was filmed for the governor's office 6 years after Casey died. And if you happen to notice my wife 6 years later, it is right under the surface. It's always there. And of course, because it tells our story. And I realize every time that I go out to a forum and Mary Ann's with me is I force her to relive her son's death. It's difficult. That was 6 years ago. I held these up. This continues to grow. These are funerals that we've attended. Many of them kids that we sat across from. Their parents brought them to us for help, and they died. City of Angels, as I said, we started out just trying to find how to help people, and it's grown. We have a satellite down in South Jersey. We're starting a satellite in North Jersey. We're a nonprofit, state of New Jersey. Everyone's a volunteer. No one is paid at City of Angels for all the family services that we do, interventions, family meetings. We now operate out of a small decommissioned school in Hamilton Township. There's AA meetings, family support meetings. So City of Angels continues to grow. One portion of City of Angels, we train recovery coaches. You heard earlier during some of the talks. Back in 2008, when Casey died, they were volunteers. In 2012, they were recovery coaches. Now they're called peer recovery specialists, and they're going into hospitals, into the police departments. We've been doing that since 2008. We train recovery coaches, as I indicated, but there's never enough. The choir, so to speak, you need to find out about recovery coaches. That's another way that you can help your parish. There was no City of Angels until we started it. You can start it. Rafts over here came and talked with us at City of Angels and asked us how do we do it. And they've created a great organization down there. When I spoke at the White House in March, I was asked to speak at the White House Opioid Summit. And I got up to speak, and I was standing there. It occurred to me that I could have never have fathomed in 2008 that our journey would take us from my son's bedroom to the East Room of the White House. But that journey began when I was kneeling over my son, and I looked up. I said, "Okay, big guy. I'm not generally weak. I'm not going to be able to survive this." I said, "You don't take this from me. It's gone out behind a shed." And I believe he took it from me. There's no way I could stand here and talk to you about this without him behind me. So I encourage you to use this as a catalyst to do the things you need to do in your parish, to take the challenge that's presented to you by Cardinal Tobin, Bishop Laton, Deanna, and the Trenton Diocese. Because the numbers that the Cardinal talked about are just staggering. It's just hard to even wrap yourself around that every 3 weeks, the same amount of people that died in the World Trade Center are dying from overdoses. And in New Jersey, you're right, the numbers aren't going down. So I have to talk to you about the tragedy, because it's real. And we have to tell you about it. But in reality, what City of Angels is about hope. It's about where did he go? There he is. He's always like that. He's like a ghost. He's here 1 second. Rob is about hope. And so many of our kids that are going out to help others. Because we grew up thinking a heroin addict lived under a bridge in Patterson or Trenton or Camden. Rob is the face of an addict and an alcoholic. He could walk through here and you would never know it. But he chooses to stand up here and tell you, which so many of our kids do. And I'll close with this. One of the parts of my journey is I've spent many a trip down to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, to Camp Lejeune, the Wounded Warrior Battalion, to Andrews Air Force Base. So I feel that I'm somewhat qualified to tell you what a hero is, because I've seen so many of them coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, missing an arm, a leg, 2 legs, 2 arms. But there's another kind of hero, and he's standing right there, because he can take his sobriety and be quiet about it, and no one will know, but he doesn't choose to do that. So City of Angels, in reality, is really about hope, and I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about City of Angels today. Thank you. One last thing. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against wickedness and snares of the devil. God, humbly pray. Let's take God. All of the evil spirits who roam throughout the world, seeking the ruins of souls. Amen. I say that every night on my knees, because he does. Thank you.